Lovely. Hello and welcome to one more episode of the Martech conversations between Dorai and Pravin. Dorai, great to talk to you again. It's been a break, but always lovely to see you.
Same here, Praveen. I was just looking forward to this.
So, Dorai, this is something you planted as a seed about a couple of months ago when we were just having a conversation, which is the How To series. And so I have been researching and looking into it. But the one key aspect that comes is influencers. And one is generic influencers, but then we can narrow it down to the Martech part on specific tech influencers and your favorite of Twitter influencers. But I would just like to kick off with a low full toss here. What's your view about influencers?
Yeah. So I've just learned this art from someone, I don't remember who. Normally you answer the question with a question. So Praveen, back to you. What do you think? Who do you think is an influencer? When you say influencer, what comes to your mind?
Okay. The first thing that comes to everybody's mind is somebody with a large following.
Okay.
Is by default an influencer, but I would more focus, and the whole world is also changing towards micro influencers.
Okay.
Now, the example that I would give is a young boy, 12, you also know Ravi and Soumya's son, Darshan, who is a tech geek, but more a gadget geek. So the last few purchases that I wanted to make, and some of our friends wanted to make, we just reached out to Darshan saying, hey, I need some earphones, I need a camera, I need to get a new phone or a laptop. And he quickly researches and sends it across to us. So if you ask me, for the geek and the mobile and the techno part of it, who is my influencer? It is that 12-year-old boy who continues to influence the friends and the family circles in terms of what to buy and what not to buy. So
Awesome.
that would be my answer to you in terms of who I think is an influencer for me for that particular need.
Yeah. Super. I think this is a fabulous answer, and we'll take from there and then work a little bit. So every one of us has somebody either in the family or in friend circle that when we want to buy a camera, we want to buy a car, we want to buy a house, or we want to buy one of these like a phone. I think the most, and the especially generation, right? The older generation always goes to the youngest generation because they're like, completely in line with exactly what, and they know what they want, and as soon as they buy it, there will be a new phone, and they want that. So they're always keeping track of this kind of stuff. It's surprising that you said this, because when I bought my second TV after coming to India, I was in India at the time. After starting my company, I took my 7-year-old son to the shop, and he knew exactly what TV we should get, Sony Orson at that time, right? And he was the influencer. And then there is no age bar. So let us look at parse that a little bit. Influencers are passionate about the space or the sphere where they influence, right?
Yes.
They're knowledgeable in the sense that they're much more knowledgeable than you are, and you would rather trust their, knowledge. Second thing, and the other thing is that they are very quickly known to others, and they don't even market themselves, but still everybody knows, because they always draw the conversation towards this topic that they're most passionate about. And those are the kinds of things. So now let us slightly veer off, and I don't know whether we can take Darshan as a business influencer. So let us switch a little bit, because we are talking about marketing, to business influencers. And so these are the key things. And people with passion stand out because they find a lot of information, they share a lot of information. And because they share, they unconditionally help other people with questions. And these qualities make them stand out. And in an earlier episode, we talked about how to educate, outmarket. And this falls right there. They're out educating, whether you want to be educated or not, they'll educate you, for example. I have such people about meditation, about Bhagavad Gita. They're passionate about things that I'm not at all passionate about, but you just cannot, So, but we know that if somebody says, hey, who's a good guy to talk to about this, and they point them to this. So that is one. So we can run down a list, but I think since our goal is to, how do you find them automatically?
Right.
And how them find in specific niches. Like Obama is an influencer, but he's not going to do anything for me, right? Um, Trump is also an influencer, but I definitely don't want him to do anything for me. So the influencer at a broader scale is different. So when you go into a very specific area, I'll tell you one story is that I just started blogging, and then I said writing every day difficult. Then early 2003 or 2004 or something, and then I stopped. And then 2006 we had a meet with a blogger by name Robert Scoble. He was a very big influencer in Silicon Valley. We sat in the house of one Mr. Doug Engelbert, and he told us why people should blog. And he gave a lot of reasons, but he said, don't worry about readership, don't worry about anything. He said, it's basically self-expression. And I said, you will, it's kind of a public diary, but you're not writing your intimate secrets there. You're just, all your thoughts, and you'll be happy to go back. So even if you think that you're the only reader for your blog, please go ahead and blog. Right. I remember that in 2006, January 1st, I came back and started blogging. And at the time, then I started blogging almost every day for a while. And then I stopped for a different reason. But when I was doing this, I tried to find who are the influencers in blogging. And there is a guy by name, there are a bunch of them, like copy bloggers, Darren Rose. And one of the guy had a way of becoming an influencer in a very, very interesting way. He said, I want you to write a blog post. Every Friday, he'll run this competition. Now, it's not really a competition. He said, okay, this Friday, I want to know what you think about bloggers, your thoughts about bloggers and or blogging, and write and send me a link and I'll post it in my blog. And because it's a collection, so at that time, I said, we always copy all these famous titles like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So I just happily took that and said 7 Habits of Highly Effective Bloggers. And I wrote a blog post. Then I found out that I was not the only dude who did that. And there was another guy also who did that. So I changed my title because he was before me. So out of respect to him, I changed the title. And then I found that there's a whole bunch of people who wrote blogs and posted on this, this influential blogger. I'll find out exactly what that blog is and tell you. Still there. A lot of people discovered other bloggers through that list, for example.
Beautiful.
Okay. So this is something what influencers do. They bring others to limelight. And then of course, he went through all the blogs, he thanked and he wrote comments and all that kind of stuff. So I think people who give unconditionally and who express, if they give unconditionally, but in some corner of the world where nobody knows anything about it, we won't know about it in social media and all that. They do it on public forum, now of course we have social media like
right.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all that. The second thing is that much before all these things came, we had influencers. They are the editors of popular magazines, right. PC Week and Info World and all these, like Dr. Dobbs Journal for the geeks and all that sort of stuff. And similarly, a lot of marketing journals, you look at it, now Neil Patel is like an influencer. Because they kind of, there is an interesting thing about influencers because a lot of people want to talk to them and they talk to a lot of people. It's by right. nature, they are like that. And then because of that, they have a lot of accumulation of knowledge. And I think their head will burst if they don't spread it. So they do spread it. And when they spread it, that, gives back, more people will say, some people will agree with them, some people will disagree with them. There'll be all these conversations going on. So these are conversation generators. So influencers are also conversation generators. Mm-hmm. And then they're very authentic because you can look at it, and see how they are in, Naval Ravikant about the angel list. And there are people, that you cannot miss right. in the, even if you're just like, somehow you will, Tim O'Reilly, he predicted, well, he coined the term Web 2.0. He's an influencer, but he was publisher of technical books essentially. But he was a very, very strong influencer. So authors are influencers.
Right.
So Praveen, with like turning out one book every other week, I think you definitely are an influencer because you are reaching out through a medium and people read it and they may agree with you, may not agree with you. They'll send their comments and because people you do a lot of research, you spend more time than anybody else on that particular topic. So you have something to contribute and you get all these other feedback and you
Right.
make it better. That that effect is there. Uh, if I want to find influencers, I look for conferences in a particular space.
Yes.
So normally the keynote speakers in the conferences turn out to be influencers.
Yes.
For topic keynotes, there are influencers too. Of course, you need to be carefully look because the sponsors always get speaking slots. Did not necessarily be influencers, but for a long time, we had this show called Comdex, Computer Dealers Exposition in Las Vegas. We used to die to be in the keynote, like when Bill Gates speaks, you have to go and listen. And every year there used to be like some new discoveries and things like that. So conference speakers and some conference speakers, even before they become famous, in fact, they become famous because of being invited to speak at a
Right.
conference, either because they have an entirely new angle or they provoke people to think very, very differently kind of stuff. And then editors of magazines are influencers because they are connected to a lot of good journalists and
Right.
writers and who gather information, who do analysis, and editors have to sit and write opinion, sometimes opinion columns and the editorials and all that kind of stuff. And the way we knew is that when in 1993, when we were trying to advertise our product, the only internet was not there. Kind
Right.
of it was there. There was some browser just like waking up from slumber somewhere, and then we used to go to these magazines and we used to go visit every one of the headquarters and made it a point because somebody said talk to them. Then they'll say, okay, all of them said, okay, please advertise, but that's not conditional. If you want to write a column, write a column, otherwise we'll allocate somebody to write a column for you and all that sort of stuff. And they had very different slots where that this column was sponsored column and this column was naturally written or this product was included and all that. And talking to them was like, so much about the industry. So I'll pause here, and then there is a whole bunch of others that I can talk about. But I'll pause for breath and let you ask some questions.
That's absolutely spot on, Dorai, because we are currently, when you talk about influencer, only looking at social media. But there's a whole lot more power on regular media or regular channels as well that people just refuse to think about, which leads me to the next question. You've clearly defined who is an influencer and why do they do what they do. But there's also a huge bunch that just focuses on amassing a following. I personally don't subscribe to this influencer marketing part when we just pay somebody to put a tweet, etc., because I firmly believe in adding value and building trust, and that is pretty much how an influencer, a true influencer, engages with the audience. But let me break it down and just ask about Twitter as a channel. And when we look at people with a lot of following, how do you, Dorai, what would your approach be to identify a real influencer from a fake one?
So there are 2, 3 things you do, right? First, you filter them. So let us say our conversation is about Martech, right? So
Yes.
we are saying Martech influencers. So we'll say Martech marketing technology. You search on Twitter, you're going to find a bunch of tweets, okay? And then you look at those tweets, and we have this tool that saves about the top 100 or 1,000 tweets kind of thing, and then you can sort them by engagement. Okay, even follow we ignore follower count completely, because if you look at some of the most influential people, they have very, very small follower count, but the engagement is like huge. They have long threads of conversation going on, and a lot of people jumping in. In fact, that is another source where I find influences just in these conversations by that contribution, right? So you filter. So just because somebody talked about Martech, they may show up in your tweet, but if they're not having a lot of conversations about marketing technology, different aspects of that's how I found Scott Brinker, who was, who put together this market map of Martech companies, like, 6,800 plus kind of thing.
Yes.
and then he later joined HubSpot. That's how you find people. So in Twitter, what I would look for, I look for engagement and the quality of conversations, and not somebody who's like tweeting all the time. Those are people who are trying to kind of show up in the crowd, at some point in time. But initially, I think it's the compulsive. I used to tweet like 20, 30, 40 times a day, because every time I read an article, I would tweet that article, because I knew exactly who were people. I had maybe about 10, 20, people who would actually read stuff and reply or have a conversation or comment or something like that. So I look for retweeters. And the retweet is kind of an interesting, because retweet is sending a signal. Why would somebody retweet your tweet, sometimes with comment, sometimes without comment? With comment will get you a slightly higher rank, but sometimes people just will retweet without comment also. Why is that? Is because they find what you found and tweeted about interesting to their audience. So through these people, you are reaching their audience, and and if it is that alignment, so that is the term I was looking for, topic alignment. So if you are interested in Martech, I am interested in Martech, and I know that which ones you will retweet when I'm tweeting, pretty much close, and you're not even that much on Twitter. I know exactly which ones, some of my friends would retweet, and none of them, not a single member of my family will retweet anything I tweet. They'll say, please go away, don't be anywhere near me, kind of thing. So we know, and they don't retweet everything. They read things they resonate with and things they follow. The other very quickly happening is some of the most influential people are the VCs. Many of the VC firms, if you've seen, started having partners who write a lot of blog posts, and they use Twitter as a way to promote their blog posts, and they start conversations too. So VCs are people, and then research and research orgs. Now suddenly, all of a sudden, I found this some link to NextGov, which is basically the next government, basically, and they talk a lot about what the government is spending money on, time on, what are their initiatives and that kind of stuff. And there's a nice thread, and they have a Twitter account. Almost every research organization, National Science Foundation has one, Discovery Channel has one. So what happens is you can go looking for them, right? And so back to your Twitter question is that I will look for topic alignment. I say that if I'm interested in Martech, but the topic is not just Martech. You can't just look for hashtag Martech, because so what you do is first you find the vocabulary of that space. So it's the market, right? What is the market? The market is buyers, sellers, influencers, the VCs who fund it, and the startups who do the work and all that sort of stuff, and find a collection of those people. And they all use slightly different terms. Some places technology in marketing, sometimes Martech, and search engines still are not smart enough to put them all together so you gather the vocabulary, and then you search for those terms, then you find the people. And then I normally look at really influential people have their own lists. I look at the list of influential people. Like, for example, when I go after, following Naval Ravikant or Tim O'Reilly or Paul Graham, or the Y Combinator, co-founder of Y Combinator, I look at who are the people they follow. Normally, their follower lists are very small. 50, they'll be following in 30 to 50 people. But that is very deep in that space. Either, they're people who they work with, or people they are sometimes retweeting. So we say how some of the big influencers are retweeting, whom are they retweeting, kind of stuff. And so there is a very interesting discovery stuff that you can do with Twitter. And we thought we can do a lot of it with natural language processing, with keyword extraction and all that. It goes only to some distance. After that, human beings have to get in and then look at it and say, hey, does it make sense? And is outbound marketing. Marketing is inbound marketing. Martech. So inbound marketing, what are the, then you start searching saying inbound marketing tools. So inbound marketing plus technology.
Right.
And then say, that is how you start finding people. A bunch of searches, and then look at the lists, and then look at the engagement metrics. You can form your own engagement metrics. How frequently they tweet is not a big metric, but it's useful. How much of the tweets are liked? Everybody likes things, so I don't use like as a. If somebody, so for example, if I say, hey, we want to run this hackathon on marketing tools, let us know whoever wants to join. And then I get like 50 likes on it, and I said, what am I going to do with these likes? Are they going to join or not? But nice thing about them is because they like, it spreads. So somebody in their group maybe, and some of them will retweet saying that, hey, this is Dorai's tweet, and you guys can go and register and things like that. So, retweets are for me higher than likes. Conversations are better than retweets and likes. So there is this hierarchy of engagement. So.
Lovely, Dorai. That was a very quick masterclass on Twitter influencers.
Yeah.
Now, a whole bunch of questions are coming through in terms of how do I identify the influencer for my company or brand? What kind of tools exist? How do I go ahead with? But we'll pause this conversation for today and continue on with the other questions. As always, a pleasure talking to you, Dorai.
Same here, Pravin. It's a lot of fun. So thanks.